My eyesight's not terribly sharp. Here we go. This is us. Okay, so we are going to start the Community Housing Committee meeting of September 25th. Is today the 25th? Yeah. Let's see if we have a quorum. Here goes the roll call. Marcia Bissell.
Here.
Myra Sahewicz.
Here.
Richard Barr.
No, John Barr.
John Barr, sorry. Excuse me. And Joshua Trott.
Here.
Okay, so seeing that there is a quorum, I will now open the meeting. And we'll go through the formal advisory that, as required by MGL Chapter 30A, Section 1825, pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, Act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law June 16, 2021. It's extended by Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. The Community Housing Committee will hold a public meeting at the time and place stated here in this notice. The public is welcome to attend either in person or via the Zoom link published on the agenda with the town clerk and on the town's website with a minimum of 48 hours notice to the public. This meeting is being recorded. And today, regarding public comment, we're going to ask the committee for a motion and vote by roll call vote to add to an agenda item to allow public comment at the end of the meeting. If the vote passes, public comment will be accepted, and we'll try to limit your comments to 3 minutes and keep them definitely within 5 minutes. So, do I hear a motion to add a item to the agenda for allowing public comment at the end of the meeting today?
Moved. A second.
Okay, moved by Myra, seconded by Marcia. And a roll call vote. Marcia? Yes or no
Yes.
to adding the
Yes.
Myra?
Aye.
John?
Yes. Aye.
Sure. And I vote aye, so that passes unanimously. Now, the first order of business, of committee business in our agenda, are minutes. What's our status on minutes?
I owe you 2 sets.
Okay,
So your next meeting, you'll have 3. You'll have this included.
okay. So that's the story for now.
That's the
All right.
story, yeah.
Membership announcements.
So in
Where
your
should we
packet,
start?
right?
Right.
You'll see that we got an email from the town planner
That's right,
confirming that Jim Saban is the planning board's representative
right?
to the committee.
Yep.
Also, we had some vacancies that have been filled. You have 2 members present that are new. Joshua Trott has experience in housing inspections and other things. I just found out that I know Josh from my days volunteering at community theater.
Cool.
Yeah. So he was the lighting guy, and they would hand over the lighting to me afterwards. So it's nice to see you again.
Most of mine, too.
Yeah. I think we should do a little play about housing. I think that should be our education
Oh, we
and outreach.
are. We're doing a big play about housing.
And then John Barr is here from South Yarmouth, and he's an architect. So we're super duper lucky to add 2 housing professionals to our committee. Pam was appointed as an associate member, which puts her in line for the next vacancy.
Good. And the next, now we'll move on to new business. And our first item is the affordable housing standards. That's one of the exhibits in our packet. And I believe that, I don't know if you've all had a chance to look this over. I've scanned it a few times, and I think that Mary has an idea for certain changes.
Yep, so we initiated this in 2010. We did a really big push for local initiative program, friendly, affordable housing that kind of fit in with the town's vision for housing. So we revised it a few times. We haven't revised it since 2014, and it's supposed to give the developer kind of a heads up of what we expect and summarize the whole process. So what we were finding that even though we had money to create affordable housing and we had local bylaws, our local developers, not the big affordable housing developers, but our local developers who wanted to provide affordable units, they were having a tough time. So we created this document to kind of get something that wasn't a law that they had to read, a summary. It's an action step in our housing production plan to go forward and revise these and update them. There needs to be a little bit of an update. It'll probably be continuing depending on what happens to our accessory apartment bylaw at the next town meeting. But also on the top of page 2, under rents and leases, the state has a way to calculate your rents. And we used to use the federal fair market rate levels to kind of push those rents down just a little bit more, just to make them truly affordable to our residents. And the federal fair market rate rents have gone through the roof because they're based on what people get for rents. And it's usually, that's the level that Section 8 vouchers target. So what I want to do is push our rents down a little bit, maybe take that out and calculate the rents the way that Town of Barnstable does. Town of Barnstable, so our rents are affordable to a household that earns 80% of the area median income. What Barnstable does is they allow people that are at 80% to apply, but they press the rents down to 65% of the area median income. So there's like a 15% affordability buffer. So that's what I think that we should do.
Well, that seems like it makes sense to me since rents have gone through the roof, as people are saying. So for that reason, it seems sensible. What do you guys think about that?
How has it been working in Barnstable? What are they finding? I mean, is it?
So we do their lotteries, so yes, so it's working. Otherwise, if they still, the 80% rents feel too high still. So I'll work up a couple of different scenarios for you for our next meeting, and if you're agreeable to looking at it, I'll get you some examples, and then we can pick and choose.
So we're all agreeable to that, right?
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
And these would apply to, like, if it was a LIP 40B, a friendly 40B. Remember, I was telling you, you are the local housing partnership committee for the town. So for a developer to go through the friendly 40B, the local initiative program 40B process, they have to get an affirmative vote from this committee. And so you can tailor your standards depending on your local needs. So, you know, some communities might say, well, we want it to be heavy on 3-bedroom units, or we want it to be heavy on 1-bedroom units. Or you can say, we want the rent a little bit lower than what the maximum allowed by the state. So when you're reading this, if there's something that you really want, for example, I don't know if this has anything about playgrounds or on-site amenities.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly, yeah.
So we might want to add something like that we encourage the developers to have on-site amenities such as playgrounds, a fitness center, all of that stuff. There's something that I hope that Josh and John can look at a little bit. On page 4, we have minimum square footage
Yeah,
and also minimum counter space in linear feet, minimum width, circulation in feet. So there was this incident where we were literally, a shed that had a toilet in it was brought forward as a affordable unit. And we had nothing in writing to say no. So that's where these come from. There was a lawyer involved, and they said, oh, no, you've never said that, you know, you don't have written rules. So anyways, it was going to get permitted, and then the person moved out, thank goodness. But I got these linear feet and the minimum width circulation in feet from the Home Consortium. But if people can just give those a quick look to see if they make sense. And then the forms on the back are the forms that the state, it's basically all the information that the state requires. So it gives the developer, a head start on those forms. So we'll put that on the agenda for our meeting in October, which I have as October 23rd.
So you're going to have a proposal for a change in that, the rents and leases, what was that called, that little heading on page 2, rents and leases, yeah. You're going to try to have wording,
Yeah.
proposed wording or alternate versions of wording?
Yes, and we might want to just put an example in for what it would be for this fiscal year, and so people will understand how I got to it.
Right. Okay, that sounds,
On-site amenities, rents, and maybe the dimensional requirements. And then anything else that you want to discuss.
Do you know if Barnstable looks at area median income or state median income?
Area median income for Barnstable County.
Okay.
okay, so I think this brings us to our next topic under new business, which is the committee charge, and we have a proposed updates to that
So
charge.
this is what got approved in 2021. And I put it in at the request of Lorraine, who unfortunately couldn't join us. She felt that we should do housing services as well and human services as well, so it's something for you guys to decide. If you want to go to the Board of Selectmen and ask to expand your charge.
Did she specify, did she explain what does she mean by those? Because those can sound to me, just my first impression is they're quite broad.
Right, and she's not here, so I
So maybe,
don't want to.
yeah, I understand.
Lorraine has a lot of conversations with people.
Yep.
And so our program has really been a brick and mortar program, really focusing on the subsidies for new units and getting them on the inventory if we can. And there is a need for housing services. So we have a little bit of rental assistance from the trust. But the department really doesn't do much more else. And there is, besides the senior center, there's really no human service department in town. So that's what she was talking about, starting that conversation.
Do you think that maybe you and she could come up with some draft language? Yeah, that would be good.
Okay, so what about the red highlighted?
Oh, those were already approved.
That's already done and
Yeah,
Yeah, that was 21.
done deal.
Yep.
that's just what I use.
Oh, I see.
That's what came out of,
Read that funny little note down there at the bottom.
yeah, this is what came out of the town
that-
administrator's office,
right,
so I just use
okay.
it.
So that's the end of that, eh?
Yep.
Okay. Now we come to the Affordable Housing Zoning Bylaw.
So it's one of our action items for the HPP. The town planner has asked that, in particular, there's one spot in the bylaw that talks about how to calculate the cash payment in lieu of on-site affordable housing. So we have an affordable housing bylaw. It's inclusionary zoning. So if you hit 5 new units, you have to start to provide affordable units. So when you hit 5, you have to provide 1 affordable unit, but you get a bonus unit from whatever zoning is allowing you. But you can provide that off-site, on-site, off-site, or a cash payment in lieu. And it's time to look at that formula again because housing prices have just gone through the roof. So it's supposed to be the equivalent of an buying down a market rate home to an affordable level. So right now, I think when you calculate it out, you get about $130,000 for each affordable unit. But in real life, you're talking about, a subsidy of $250,000. So the town planner has asked for that to be done. And if you have the tolerance and bandwidth, I'll send you the whole affordable housing bylaw and mark that unit with proposed language.
Very good.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I'm up for it. All right, moving on to old business, the housing production plan. The much-discussed housing production plan.
All right, so in your packet, you'll see a document, it's about, it's 4 pages back to back. So this is my attempt for verbatim of the Board of Selectmen's comments that they made on August 1st, 2023, when we presented the HPP to them. And I decided to do them verbatim, just because I started listening to them, and they were saying a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
They said a lot of stuff that had to do with economic development and the visioning work, the town, and the local comprehensive plan, and mostly about housing, but there was a lot of stuff. So I've typed them up verbatim as much as I can. Just what they said, I kind of left our comments out because I wanted everybody to really focus on what they were saying. I've shared them with the town planner and the director of community development with this little heads up. This stuff is coming your way when you start to work on the local comprehensive plan. Then on the last page, what we want to do is incorporate their comments into the housing production plan. So on the last page is my short list of items to add or delete.
There seemed to be some comments about the length of time that they'd had the document and were able to review it. How long a period of time was that?
So I'd have to double check. We've been working on this document for quite some time, and it's been available to the public, online, et cetera. Right, there was a comment that we had given to them 3 days before. I think they had gotten a link before that. And I did print out some copies and put them up at the Board of Selectmen's office for them to pick up, whether they did or not. But I do believe that one person only had it for 3 days, and that's okay. He can have all the time in the world to look at it. And it is a thick document because the whole first half of it is all the statistics and demographics and projections. And if you read it all in one sitting, you're a little tired by the time you get to the real meat and potatoes of things that we want to do to address these needs. You first have to prove that you have a need, and then you have to address it. But they always put that boring proof start in the beginning, and so you can't just skim the document. You have to take it in a couple of seatings. And I think I called their comments about workshopping wrong. I think they really do want a workshop.
Good.
Yeah.
That was my question. Has there been any interaction about that?
No, I think that should
yet?
be from us, right?
Okay.
That should be from us. But the chair of the Board of Selectmen, he's got a good poker face, right?
Yeah. And?
And when I said, we're gonna have a workshop, right? I think I was getting the poker face, but when I watched it again, I think he did give a little nod. So I think I missed the
Okay,
little.
so how do we initiate something like that?
So we need to write a memo when we're ready, and then pick a good time to meet with them.
What do you have in mind, just off the top of your head? This is not a
So I
pin you
think
down or anything, but I just want to start getting a concept of,
if I can get feedback from you
okay,
that I've captured everything
all right?
that they talked about.
Yes.
And then this is, the subsidized housing inventory is in your packet too,
Very interesting, yeah.
right? The HPP has to be redlined to show Yarmouth's new numbers in here.
Yeah,
So I think when we get a redlined version that you guys are comfortable with, that you vote on to endorse, that's when we workshop with them.
okay.
I was hoping to bring it, so that wouldn't be sooner than November. And I don't think they meet for a while because of town meeting. You know what I mean? The cycle gets kind of cut off. So I'm thinking we would
This is
workshop.
going to get pushed,
It easily
several
gets
months
pushed.
away, yeah.
This easily gets
Okay.
pushed. But plans are important because you need to know where you're going.
right?
And we can also report to them at the time, at that time. We're working on these there's action items we're working on, so. Also in your packet is this document. So the housing
Right,
production working group looked at this. This has kind of like just a very brief thing about how things get permitted in town. It's by our bylaw and chapter 40B. So that's just the cover page. But then it goes through and it has lots that are highlighted in town. And so these are places that have been discussed either by a developer coming in, or the town, or this committee, or a phone call I've gotten from a realtor. These are lots that have potential for housing on them. They also have potential for commercial development or remain undeveloped. So in our housing production plan, we have this big chart, right? That lists possible developments. So this is one of the requirements that the state has. The state says you have to plan out, think about what's going on in your town, in that you have to identify areas in town or parcels in town where you think housing units are going to come online, and tell us how many of those would qualify for the subsidized housing inventory. So 6 years ago, we had motel properties on there, right? Because we knew the motels were getting redeveloped into housing, and lo and behold, 2 of them have. Before that, we listed Simpkins School, which got reused for housing. So it's things like that. So you'll see, like in year 5, it talks about Mattakey School property. So we don't exactly know what's going to happen at Mattakey School, but there is a committee that's looking at the reuse for Mattakey School, and one of the uses is for housing. So it's on the list because we've talked about it. So this document is supposed to kind of help get us through this long list. So our Housing Production Committee has looked at this, and here it is with you now. And there's a list for subsidized housing units. There's a column for subsidized housing units, and then non-subsidized housing units. So those are units that will come online, but, probably somehow, serve low, moderate income households, but won't get on the subsidized housing inventory. So if you want, I can go through this a little bit.
Sure.
Great.
All right, so I'm going to go through this. And Norm,
Okay.
do you want a copy of this while I go through it? It's the HPP chart, a housing production chart. Why don't I give it to you, because you'll,
I think I know what
and I'm gonna put today's date on it, because it's gonna change. Oh, it might.
thank
Selectmen typically on a Friday get 250 pages to read. Adding another 75 pages to read is a big ask.
So, so I didn't redline every single little thing because it was starting to get really confusing, but there was a lot of comments about Forest Road, and the Board of Selectmen asked that that be removed. So in year one, which is no longer 2023, is going to be 2024, Forest Road has been struck. What's in its place is a redevelopment of 77 Route 28, which is in West Yarmouth, which is probably one of the oldest motel buildings in town. It is used for long-term motel stays, short-term rentals, right? And in great need of redevelopment. There's been some site improvements, but even the owner knows, and they have applied for money from the state for the redevelopment of that property through their one-stop.
Which line is this?
This is
rep-
your very
top line.
second, and I'm sorry, I should have probably numbered them.
Second
So it
thing
says,
right after the,
yep, it says
thing that's
motel
crossed out.
redevelopment, West Yarmouth, and you see way over to the right, there's the address.
7728, yep.
And we have to discuss
you
whether
mean.
we're going to put addresses or not. Normally, we do. The planning board objected to having the addresses on there, so we took them out. Then we brought it to the Board of Selectmen. They said, no, you got to put them back in. So I think there's some members of the Housing Production Working Group that's like, yeah, leave them in. It's transparency. So that's 77 Route 28. Now, right across the street, Wendwood Way, right, there's 91. Oh, and these are in here.
Right,
These are in here.
right, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Right across the street is 99 Route 28,
Right,
plus the next little house, 26 Windwood Way. And they've been to the Affordable Housing Trust looking for a subsidy. So these numbers, this 30 units for 77 Route 28 and 42 units at 91 Route 28, those are numbers that the developer has back of the envelope figured. So those are good to list on your year one, because they're the ones that are the closest. And that would get us to 72 units. I think the minimum number we need is now 62. Remember, it was 57? Well,
62 per year.
yeah. This chart changed, right? So it's the state, remember Karen Sonnenborg, our consultant, she was estimating what that minimum production number would be. But now we know. So, yeah, so we have a minimum production goal, otherwise the state won't approve the plan. And the whole benefit of approving the plan is if you meet that production goal in 1 year, you get a free pass from Chapter 40B for 12 months. So it's supposed to just be a little incentive to just keep going. So then the other 4 lines, they're non-SHI units. That would be, where I'm anticipating accessory apartments to come to be revitalized by the new bylaw change that's proposed by the town. Would do 1 septic repair with our federal U.S. HUD funds. Would do 5 home ownership preservation units through emergency home repairs. That's run by our community partner, Hetch. And then we'll always continue with our rental assistance, Hands of Hope. I thought they were going to stop that program. I saw the director, they can continue on.
Right.
And Hetch has applied for money too. So those are the non-SHI units, which, plans have started to include those because the state was just so focused on SHI units. I'm sure they were getting frustrated, saying, what the heck are these towns doing? They're not but we do a lot of non-SHI work. So, so at this point, anybody have any comments on that?
So I see some partnerships with Hetch. Does the town of Yarmouth do anything with TRI?
No.
Okay.
No, that's a good That's a good, I think they've fallen off of my list to get a direct quote from. You know, like, so when you put something out to bid, you put it out in the newspaper, you put it on your website, but you can send it to people who have bid on stuff before. But I forgot about them.
Yeah, I have contacts at the Resource Institute that I can pass along, and maybe we can get them involved a little bit more as
Yeah.
well.
Tell me what it is.
The Resource Institute, it's a program to help low-income customers for home repairs or other things like that. They've done roof replacements, siding replacements, additional items like that to keep somebody in a home that they otherwise couldn't afford to repair.
And where are they headquartered? Right here, locally?
They are local. I forget exactly
Yeah,
what town
right
they're in.
around here somewhere.
I want to say Orleans, but that's not right. They are on the Cape.
And it's
They're on the
called
Cape.
Resource Institute?
Yeah, and they do service Yarmouth.
Yep.
So, thank you for reminding me of that. So, right, so they could fit in somewhere in that, you
Yeah.
know.
Might help us squeeze a few more things in here.
And so Hetch runs our home ownership repair program, but they, their capacity, you know, they do this Cape-wide. So their capacity for Yarmouth is like 3 applications at a time. You know what I mean? So,
And I know they're limited to about $20,000 for a unit generally.
Yep.
So it's great if you can leverage something like the Resource Institute with hedge funds
Yep.
to do a bigger project that otherwise might not be able to be addressed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. And that's an HPP action goal, increasing capacity. So can is it okay if I go on to year 2, 2025? So I anticipate a grayfield redevelopment. So a grayfield is not a greenfield and it's not a brownfield. It's a grayfield. It's something that is already developed and underutilized. So that could be a vacant school. That could be a piece of property that's not being used. It could be a blighted property, a commercial property. So this one I have is 550 Route 28. So it's on the corner of Route 28 and West Yarmouth Road. So those properties,
Right across from Freebird that they just redeveloped, right?
and along the Woodside South Cemetery.
I see it. I see your map. 3.
So they had called me to see if that would be a good spot for affordable housing. And so I estimated if that did get redeveloped, that would be 25 units. The next one is 12 Winslow Gray Road. You can see I have Route 28 in the beginning and then the rest afterwards.
If you keep looking, you'll find it. Forgot about this one.
So 12 Winslow Gray, that's South Sea Avenue, you know, comes out to Route 28 at the
Yeah.
stoplights, and across the way, there's, is it Great Island Plaza?
It's an abandoned home, isn't it? Right?
Yes.
That's what that, yeah.
Yep, so it's owned by the same property, but when they redevelop this area, they have to provide, they're supposed to provide mixed use. They've been encouraged by the town. So it's a little stalled. There are some preliminary plans. And that 12 Winslow Gray Road is an old abandoned home.
Right.
And they were thinking of bringing, putting the housing there, demolishing that property, demolishing that building, and redevelop for a little bit of housing. So I estimated 4 units there. I think it's a 5-bedroom home right now. The next one is 1121 Route 28, and that's the property that Habitat for Humanity is purchasing for the development of 5 homes.
It's very close to here.
It's right across the street. I'm so
Across the
excited.
street.
Then there's 612 Route 28.
Yeah, this is an unusual.
612 Route 28. There's a local septic designer who has come in with plans on this several times. So it's going to be redeveloped. It might be one of those that happens once Route 28 is sewered,
Yeah.
because otherwise they have to put a system on their property, and that's going to be really expensive.
To then replace in several years, yeah.
Yeah. So, and that one was, the last plan I saw was for about 12 units, so that's where I got that. Then 17 and 27 Angus Ave. Those two lots have either been listed or, realtors have been calling. So they've called the planner, the building commissioner, me. So just back of the envelope, I just estimated 6 units there. See how I'm doing it? It's like, oh, somebody calls, you look it up, you have like a half an hour conversation on the phone about what, so then it ends up on our list.
You're giving me the idea these are conservative estimates.
These
You're
are
not
very
just making
conservative.
up wild numbers out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Looking at the size of the lot, when you said 6 units, I went, So it's better to underestimate and overdeliver.
Right. Right, like I think,
A lot better, in a case like this. Like essential, I think.
Yep.
and I kind of did look at the lots kind of like across the street, right? So sometimes in planning, when we're in our department, when we project out, you look at what the local density is. But you could do a lot more if that was Seward or,
Right.
Berry Ave, 11 Berry Ave is actually on the corner of Route 28 and Berry Ave. So that's for sale. 0.8 acres.
Yeah, that's just woods at the moment, yeah.
So I had that as a conservative 4 units.
See, this is where the selectmen are going to say, well, we want to have mixed use on Route 28. We don't want it to be just housing.
4
That's the-
units, right, so
The
our
thing that people are
plan,
going to be
our
saying.
plan does not have to, see, this, right, so when this plan needs to be approved by lots of different people, but it's based on the housing regulations of the state.
Right.
So the reason why I put 4 units there was to, maintain the capacity at that lot for commercial use.
Okay,
Like 4 little apartments on top of a commercial building.
it's good.
And is that something that's being pushed for quite a bit? The 2-story buildings, commercial on the first floor, residential on the second?
So it's not required, right? It's definitely in the town's vision, right? Top of the shop.
Yes.
Mostly for the tax base, for commercial.
For the
space.
tax base and, Route 28 used to be all or mostly residential, and then one town meeting, it got zoned commercial from one end to the other, right? We're all like, there goes the village center concept, right? It used to be more village center, and you can see when you're driving down, you'll see, oh, there's a little house that's still there. Well, how did that get there? Well, that was the original house before the zoning changed. So housing right now, rental housing is what people are investing their money in. So the CEDC, the Community and Economic Development Committee, the Chamber, and the Board of Selectmen want to make sure that we maintain space for commercial development on Route 28. But unless, we own it, we can't, you know what I mean? It's difficult, because residential is allowed. And of course, you can use Chapter 40B to introduce residential zoning in any zone, regardless of what the zone is, so. One of the suggestions we might want to make is that some of the housing that's come along on Route 28 that was due to local subsidy, which then match state and federal subsidies, we might want to suggest to them that a commercial redevelopment authority is formed
Oh,
to
yes.
work in tandem
Right.
with our Affordable Housing Trust.
See, I think that is a pretty good point, because there's this anxiety about commercial, maintaining 28 as a commercial mixed-use space and doesn't just turn into a rental thing, an affordable housing
No, it
strip.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it,
Have a redevelopment authority, yeah.
You guys like that?
Yeah.
I think I should put it in the HPP.
I don't know.
I think I'm going to put it in the HPP
I don't know what you're supposed to put in the HPP.
to address that comment.
But it's something to for us to sink our teeth in with the Board of Selectmen, et cetera, right? Like, what are we really going to do here to address this free-floating anxiety, right? Make it
Yeah.
something real, right? That's what I think, anyway.
Yeah.
a lot, reading the HPP, a lot of things were, I mean, obviously about tax base and things like that, and not having the tax base go up in the city of Yarmouth. So when something like Yarmouth Commons is built, what kind of taxes do they pay, or is that part of the incentive to get them to do the development to begin with?
So, they do pay taxes. The town can waive taxes from affordable developments, right? When they came along, Yarmouth Commons was first, it was Dakota Partners. And that was the first time the town grappled with that. And we had a brand-new town assessor, Andrew Machado, and he said, just make it income rent-based. So what he does is he collects data from all of our commercial renters, right? Not commercial renters, but our property management companies. And these aren't like the units that, I own a house and I rent it, over the winter or for the whole year. These are businesses that their job is to own and maintain and manage rental buildings. So he gets the rent data from them, and that's what their property tax is based off of.
Okay.
So you can see if you have an affordable housing development where the rents are down, right, they're lower than a market rate building, they do get a tax break just based on the amount of rents they collect. But I'll double check with him.
I'm just curious about residential versus commercial tax rate. I have no idea what it is for the town of Yarmouth.
Flat,
Yeah, it's a 1-to-1. It was just spoken about in was the select board meeting a couple weeks ago. They reiterated the 1-to-1 tax rate.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay. Where are we at here?
I think we're in year 3. No.
Oh, you're still going through our chart
Yep.
up to year 5, right?
538 Buck Island Road. Oh, 538 Buck Island Road is the lot of land that's behind Buc-ee's.
Oh, yeah, right.
It's a little tiny bit, and the person who, there was a proposal for 4 units by Chapter 40B there a long time ago, and I just saw the developer, and he asked me to send all the information to him again, to see if he could get that going. So that's what that is. That would be Chapter 40B rental. So 1 would be affordable. But with rental projects, if 25% of the units are affordable, the total number of units go on the subsidized housing inventory.
Quite a trick, isn't it?
It's a big incentive by the state to
Yeah.
do rental.
That jumped out at me when I was learning how this worked, yeah.
Okay, year 3. All right, so this is 520 Buck Island Road, which is across the street from the new municipal buildings and next to the fire station on Buck Island Road. And this parcel of land is for municipal use. And I have identified that parcel as a good spot for a veterans homeless shelter.
Right, and I remember us talking about this, and I think that's a great idea, yeah.
So,
'Cause you have a real specific program in mind as to how it could be run, right? And-
Right.
Right.
So I was asked to look into the viability of bringing veteran housing to Yarmouth. We've had a little bit of a success. You know how we love local preference, right? We love local preference. Well, the state is allowing us to take some of those local preference units and give them a veteran preference. Okay? So when we do Habitat for Humanity's lottery, one of the units will have a veteran's preference. So that will be the first one that we have in town. I was working with a lot of nonprofits, NGOs that provide services to veterans, and we were thinking of doing something like Dennis did. They have a group home, but that nonprofit, it's Cape and Islands Veterans Outreach Center, isn't ready to do another building yet. But in the meantime, I just called the state. I called the state's Veterans Office, and they said to talk to Soldier On. Soldier On develops, they don't call it transitional housing. A lot of people do. They call it permanent housing because they say that the people that go into them are there forever. So, but Soldier On, they do develop multifamily buildings that house homeless veterans. And what I really liked about their program was that they marry it with an economic development piece. So it's interesting. You should go online and look at it. I can have the guy come and talk to us in October if you want. For example, what they do is they'll put like a commercial kitchen in their buildings or their campus. And they'll offer little schools and daycares and places that need some catering on a daily basis, like a nice hot lunch for the kids. They'll prep that food and deliver it, right? And the people who live in the building, they're their workers. The other thing they do is they contract for, they buy a van and they contract transportation services for people who needs rides to the doctor, the hospital, that kind of stuff. So, and again, their clients are work in those little jobs. They're not required to work. They don't have to work full-time. They can work part-time or full-time, depending on how much work there is. But I really thought that was a nice way to kind of keep everybody busy and, on their road to recovery or whatever they need help with.
Being situated next to the fire station and first responders, I think that's a great location as well.
I thought that would be a good, match. There's some residential in that area, but I think and it's near Hyannis. It's near the hospital, so people who need rides to medical appointments, they're right there. And you could still walk and get the bus, right? You can still walk. It's not that far of a block up and catch the bus. And then behind it is Sandy Pond. It's a kind of a rustic entrance into Sandy Pond, but still, I think there's a sidewalk in that area to go to the park. So I thought it was a pretty good spot. We just need a group of people behind it,
Yeah,
not just Mary Wade.
I'm interested in getting behind it, but then the Soldier On rep could talk to us about it and stuff.
So do you think I should invite him in October?
Absolutely.
Or is it too soon?
That'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then that is, that would be a Chapter 40B, multifamily housing, and I think what they do is they have a bedroom and a private bath, and then they share the kitchen and the living space.
Living space, yeah.
Common space, yeah. But I think that means that every bedroom counts, so. The next one is West Great Western. This is land that was taken for conservation, I think water, recreation. And so the Recreation Department, the Recreation Commission was fine with it being repurposed as affordable housing. It's still on the list. We haven't quite gotten past the Conservation Commission. So it's carving out 11 acres for a habitat development. At first, it was like 5 acres, but the topography is crazy in there.
Yes.
So it might be something would be better to have. That the engineers were always like, no, make it bigger, and then you can figure out your route in. So that's that. And then we're starting to get into the area where we're not quite sure what's going to happen, right? We're probably going to have something on Route 28 because the sewering. We might have another scattered site infill, kind of like the land behind Buc-ee's or something that Habitat found someplace else. And then by that point, we'll probably be helping homeowners hook up to sewer systems. And if the state allows, those will go on the subsidized housing inventory. Then year 4. Now you have Route 28 Seward. Back in the day, there was a huge proposal to redevelop 934 Route 28, which is Skull Island, right? There's a lot of land in there that's in common ownership. And I've seen beautiful plans, mixed use, a little bit of motel, a little bit of year-round housing, a little bit of amenities. I think they're keeping the golf, the putt-putt there. So, but that could be a significant change to Route 28. So I just estimated 35 units.
This is where Skull Island is now? So this is Nicanello.
So I haven't spoken to Nick in a long time, but I have seen these plans, and a lot of zoning was created to allow for that when they're ready. It's a beautiful piece of property.
Goes all the way back to the pond.
Water, yeah. So, there's a couple of spots right there that haven't been developed, but if it were developed, there'd be units that would look at the water. So it has immense development possibility. And then again, see, there's no addresses because you really don't know. Now you're kind of just basing it on past trends. I think by then you'll see in year 4, I have Building Dreams town-wide rental. We have a community partner called Building Dreams. It's administered by Michael Williams. And it's a nonprofit charitable organization that owns 11 affordable rental units in town, manages them, and it's really our high quality affordable rental homes. He's got some duplexes and some standalone homes, and I think he owns our only 4-bedroom affordable unit. So he finds these units and he comes to us for money. So I think by then the market would have kind of eased off a little bit. He responds to an RFP, and we give him acquisition funds, and he goes out shopping. And what he does too is he's collecting rents on all these other places, and he lets his bank account build up, so that when we're ready to give him some money, it all kind of falls into place. So I figure he'll start buying stuff by that year. And then by year 5, hopefully we'll have decided what to do with Matakees School. And hopefully there'll be a healthy housing component. And then again, I'm expecting another redevelopment on Route 28, scattered infill, and some more septic hookups.
So a reuse committee has not yet been.
The charge has been approved.
Right. For Matakees, I mean.
Yeah. So, yep. So if people are interested in that, they should talk to their friendly Board of Selectmen about that. You know,
It's still a work in progress.
it's
yeah.
still a work in progress. You all know
Forming
Dorcas.
the committee to decide on, make recommendations
It's
on
gonna
how
be
to
Dorcas
use.
that's gonna, you know, she's the appointments chair.
Right.
So if you know of anybody that's interested, I think there was a little caveat in the charge that you shouldn't have people that already have an interest in the property. And that was interpreted like, oh, you can't have, you know, let's say the library development committee is interested in their property. You couldn't have anybody from there. They kind of backed off from that. That's not what
Yeah.
that was interpreted too strongly, so.
Strongly. You can have a rooting interest, not a financial interest. Right?
I think that's what it, I think that's what it was. So, but that's gonna be a big deal. And it's a beautiful piece of property. And, it already has pavement, it already has trees cut down. It would be wonderful to do something there without cutting any more trees. It would just, they have fields that are already cleared.
They've got solar panels.
They have solar panels. And they have a sidewalk.
All right? Are you going to carry on to your 5?
So I'd like to, you know, I'd like to finalize that in our October meeting. And, yeah, so. And then also that's what's in your package is the summary of strategies. When we look at the Board of Selectmen's comments, I don't know if you have this one page in front of you.
Yeah, I've got it.
But under C, continue to revitalize commercial areas with housing,
With housing, yeah.
right? So the Board of Selectmen, we're talking about mixed use, which is commercial plus housing.
Yes.
And I think we need to put that in there.
Mixed.
Some type of, with a priority for housing in mixed-use developments, something like that.
Okay, I'm not really a big expert on the jargon, but when you say mixed use, does this really boil down to what people are saying, like top of the shop now? Yeah. Like literally, like housing and apartments and business in the same
Yeah.
building
Shop.
specifically. Otherwise, it doesn't count as mixed use. Okay,
Like, I think that
that's what I thought, but people
this
never
little,
quite say
this little
that.
description, you know, with housing doesn't exclude
Doesn't- No,
mixed use.
no, but it doesn't specify mixed use. Why don't we just specify that?
Well, I think we should say with a priority towards.
Priority? Okay.
The problem with mixed-use developments is unless it's self-financed, it's very difficult to get financing for it. I don't know why.
Well, there was some gentlemen with the proposal recently for a 40B project who were speaking in just those terms to us.
Remember, he said, we were like, why don't you put everything all in one building? And he said he couldn't get it financed.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Yarmouth Commons said. That was Dakota Partners. And Yarmouth Gardens, that was Commonwealth Community Developers. They said the same thing. They said the minute they start to put in the commercial storefront, right? Even if they weren't looking for like financing for that, it just like messes everything up. The underwriting is different, it's more complicated, and they say that they just lose points when they're competing against other developments.
Yeah, I don't,
So that's the driver, is the financing. So unless we start a bank, a redevelopment authority, right? We're gonna, or just using smaller developments with local money, we're going to have a problem bringing large numbers of housing on.
So
with-
if we're going to have workshop with the Board of Selectmen that are worried about that, these are the actual nitty-gritty of what's going on, right, to discuss.
That's a good idea. I mean, maybe one of the, maybe somebody from Dakota Partners could come down and
Explain that?
explain that
Yeah,
a little bit.
that'd be interesting. I'm having, it's an interesting dilemma.
I wonder if this is a conversation we could have with some of the more local banks instead of a nationwide bank.
Joshua, you mean like have someone from Cape Cod 5 come
Yeah,
in here
or
and?
Eastern Bank or something,
Yeah.
somebody who deals with it that
Yep.
could maybe give us some more information.
Yeah, who's the one that advertises all the time about, we'll build this for you, we'll build that for you? Needham Bank, I think, is always advertising that. Maybe they would be interested.
It's interesting. The Needham Bank.
Yeah.
It would be great if we could point developers towards, this is the bank that will underwrite this type of development.
See what I can do. And I think that's all I have for now. I think we're going to meet, the working group will meet again to kind of finalize these changes in the HPP and then bring them to the full committee, redlined.
Okay. Are we all the way to number 4 here, reports and actions, or not?
Yes.
Okay. So maybe the first item under reports and actions, we would postpone? Was Lorraine going to speak about that? It says Chair's report,
Yeah.
CHAPA, et cetera. I'm not sure.
I don't think is somebody in?
Carol Ewing?
I don't know who that is.
She's the only one whose name is up there.
Yeah, so Lorraine's not in. Yeah, I don't think I have anything. CHAPA is working on getting the housing bond bill
Okay.
passed. So, that's all I have.
Okay, well, why don't we move on then to the second one, the Home Consortium. What do we have to say about the Home Consortium? I don't have anything to say
I
about
don't
it.
either. Oh, so, David, will you put up that slide? Oh, it's already up.
So the Yarmouth Housing Authority, I have something to say about, because I am the representative to this committee from the Yarmouth Housing Authority, and they had a public meeting in which they explained what they intend to do with a property that they own on Forest Road that's about almost 19 acres. It's near the senior center. And it's to be, the plan is, and according to the deed, this property is to be used to develop affordable housing. And to fulfill that commitment that they had taken on, they plan to dispose of the property to a developer, put out a request for proposals, and they're working with the Mass Housing Partnership and a representative from that agency to create a request for proposals, and that's in development. The due diligence has been pretty much finalized. And this timeline shows you that in early 2024, in several months from now, a few months from now, the RFP would be released and proposals would be expected in May. And we hope to award the development in June. But then the real action would begin because the developer would then have to start going through the permitting process, the 40B type permitting process. And that will be very extensive. A lot of people are quite dismayed by this concept, and so it'll be a controversial thing. But that's the plan that's going forward as of now. There you have it. Is that pretty much? So, the next thing is the Affordable Housing Trust. And this is an application that we need to approve, right?
So in your packet, you have the Affordable Housing Trust's application to the Community Preservation Committee for $200,000 for general use for affordable housing. So the Community Preservation Committee every year has to put aside 10% of their revenue for that fiscal year aside for affordable housing, 10% for historic preservation, and 10% for open space recreation. The town can, say, well, these percentages should go up, but normally they just keep it at 10% for those three pots. And the 70% that's left over can be used for any of those purposes. So this is kind of our, we call it the general deposit. It's our annual request for funds to, put into the trust account for use to preserve and create affordable housing. So part of the official process from the Community Preservation Committee is that they receive a letter of endorsement from the Housing Committee regarding housing applications.
Oh, so you're a trustee.
So, yeah, Myra is on the trust. I don't know if you
Yeah.
have anything else to add.
Not really, other than I think we should definitely support this.
On the very last page is your budget. So you can see the Affordable Housing Trust pays for my salary for most of it. The federal government pays for the part that I work for the Community Development Block Grant Program. We put aside a little bit for legal, just in case we have a special project that we want to hire. Sometimes town council is too busy, and I have something I just need closed. So, and we can grab a local lawyer to do that. And then that leaves us $138,000 for affordable housing creation, new units. We're not asking for a lot more, because we have about $700,000 already. We just spent $500,000 for the land that Habitat is buying. And so, asking for $200,000 every year seems to be enough to always have enough in the bank to do something. And then if we have special projects, we can always go to the CPC for those.
So Myra, you have a comment?
No, I just had a question. So the CPC actually accepts applications throughout the year, not
They
just
can.
once? Oh, okay,
They can.
okay.
Nothing precludes that, but they like to have everything all at once. That way, it's only fair that they look at everything all at once. But if there was a special acquisition or something coming up, they would entertain that, but you'd have to wait for the next town meeting vote
Yeah.
for that. There's no reason why the town couldn't call a special town meeting for something.
Well.
That usually happens more with open space purchases than affordable housing.
Okay.
So, Mary, our job is to vote to approve this?
To endorse it and
To
recommend
endorse
it
it,
for
that's the
approval
right-
by the CPC.
Okay. So for a motion, how do we word this?
I make a motion
That we vote to
that they
endorse?
and recommend
What do we call this particular?
the trust's FY '25 application for community preservation
The application
Funds.
for funds, right?
of $200,000.
So move.
Second.
Second.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to try to repeat that.
We all have that firmly in mind. We all know what we're voting on, don't we? I think anyone watching on television
And I
could
think because it's
would
with
agree.
money, we should do a roll
Yes,
call
absolutely.
vote.
All right, I'll call the roll call begins. Marcia,
Aye.
Myra,
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Aye by me.
Aye.
Passed unanimously. Okay. Now, the next thing is,
Oh, the planning board. So, did anybody go to the public hearing?
I
on
watched
the-
it. I watched it.
I did, yeah.
So you watched it, and it's my understanding the planning board had a public hearing
Right.
on their proposed changes to the accessory dwelling
Yes, I was there.
bylaw, and that they voted unanimously to recommend it, to send it to the Board of Selectmen and recommend that town meeting pass the zoning change.
Yeah,
It will be a 2/3 vote, right? Because it still has the special permit requirement in it.
yeah, they hashed that out in many meetings among themselves, and the way they reached consensus was in that way.
So that
That's how
special
I
permit,
took
if you
it
have to,
anyway.
if you're a homeowner that wants an accessory apartment, you go to the zoning board of appeals. There's a public hearing, your neighbors are notified, and that's the special permit process. That's how we do it now. And I'm not sure that they've ever denied an accessory dwelling unit, so I'm confident that the program will still go forward even with that caveat, so.
Okay. I've lost track of, okay, Community Preservation Committee is under Planning Board. But we just discussed the Community Preservation Committee. You have something else to bring to our attention?
They received 2 affordable housing applications. One you just saw, the other one is Adult Shared Living is a newer local nonprofit / charitable organization. It's a 501c3. And they want to create housing for disabled adults. So they've put in, they didn't know if they should put in a letter of interest to the CPC or try to complete the application. So it's kind of in between a complete application and a letter of interest. Sometimes, you have an idea, you want to talk to the CPC about it, so the CPC has a form that you fill out. It's kind of like a letter of interest. So, but this is kind of in between, so we'll see what happens, how the CPC handles it. The applicant has not come and asked me to be on this agenda yet, but I have met with them. So it's a great idea, it's all about, what parcel could be used for this. What funds could be, that's the point, that's the part that they're at. So they're building capacity in their board, and have met with me about, finding a location for this. No historic applications. I know, yeah. But there's some open space. The Open Space Committee has identified a parcel for acquisition. And we've also have a program in town to remove Phragmites from conservation areas. And that is sometimes funded with CPC money. So there's an application for that.
Cool.
And there's also other stuff going on. I think the Route 28 park system in West Yarmouth where the Yankee Village was, I think they've put in for a little bit more money.
Sense, because they do have plans.
Yeah. And we have 2 full-time people in our conservation office. So not only are they processing all these incoming applications, they have to look at when people want to do work within the wetlands, jurisdiction and the riparian zone of rivers and stuff like that. But also they're able to start looking at, maybe improving some of our open space and expanding our open space with new purchases. So you're going to see more and more of that kind of stuff, which is good. So that's the CPC.
Okay, and the last item there is department.
Community development. We're busy. Let's see, there was something I wanted to,
What could it be?
I know, there was something I wanted to update you with, but maybe we've covered enough. Maybe.
Covered a lot,
We've
seems
covered a
like to
lot.
me.
We're a busy department. So for the newbies, right? Our Department of Community Development has planning, the planning board, economic development. We have a vacancy for our economic developer, our economic planner. But we have a community and economic development committee. We have the Historical Commission in Old Kings Highway. We have ZBA and conservation. So we're a busy department, but what's nice, having it all kind of together, we coordinate stuff. So it's not like, let's say there was a parcel that I had earmarked for affordable housing, and Concom wanted to kind of buy that for open space. That dialogue can happen within the same department now, it's not separated, we're not doing stuff in silos. The other thing is, and why this is so important is if there was some town land that has somehow been associated with conservation land, the state constitution requires the town to provide an equal square footage of conservation land someplace else. Do you know what I mean? So there's some landlocked land that people can't develop because it's landlocked by conservation land. So if you were to ever give access to something and make something developable, you would really have to have a coordinated effort in town, and it's nice because it's all under one department. Also, we were approached by the Cape Cod Commission to start looking at properties that have building capacity on them, right? So sometimes they're like historic sites, right? So yeah, on paper it looks really, really good, right? Oh, this has this little church or something on it, but the rest of the land is all open. Why don't you, do a mixed-use development, put some housing there? So it's nice to have that discussion with the historic people and the housing people all in the same room, at a department meeting. So. And our comment to that was no.
Okay. We're getting towards the end here.
Yeah. So we meet next on the 23rd. I don't know what everybody's schedule is. Have working group meetings.
Does that interest you, gentlemen? You haven't had an opportunity to think about this before. We have little things we call working group meetings, sort of like subcommittees, you might say, right here at the town hall. And when have we been having them on Fridays?
We've been having them at 2:00 on Fridays.
How often have we been having them? Once a month?
We usually have them at least once in between meetings.
Right.
And that's been really helpful to me. For example, the changes, they were the first set of eyes to look at this document with all the, and the changes that were on this, they gave a good look at. So it's just nice to kind of get some direction in subcommittee and then bring it to everybody. Otherwise, it's kind of like you're only meeting once a month on things.
So in the normal course of things, the next such meeting would be when?
I'm sorry, I'm looking it up. So we meet next on the 23rd.
Yeah.
So, this Friday the 13th or Friday,
I love
October
Friday.
13th or the 20th.
We've got full availability either of those days.
I'd love to meet on the 13th.
13th is fine with me.
Works better for me.
See?
then,
It's a lucky day.
Yeah.
It really is.
So what we do is we spend 1 hour on the housing production piece, which is basically, at this point, this chart. It's publicly advertised, anybody can come, but it's much more like a workshop where we just kind of hash things out. No formal decisions or anything like that. And then we follow that with an hour about outreach and education. Just to let you know what happened at our last ones. We met on the 8th, and it was Lorraine and Drew that came, and all we did was talk about the housing production plan.
No, I was at the next one.
Oh, you were at the next one, sorry.
This was earlier, this was the 8th, and we discussed some of the parcels in this document, and came up with some more ideas. Then on the 22nd, it was Myra and Drew and myself. And we spent about a good solid half an hour to an hour going through this, familiarizing ourselves with this document and this, and there was no comments or changes on that. And then we went to outreach and education, and Myra had a really wonderful suggestion about contacting the planning board and asking if they needed any help getting the word out about the proposed zoning change for the ADUs. So if you're all good with that, I'll draft up a little, probably just by email, offering some help with that. I think, Myra, you were thinking of identifying some groups that would be interested in learning more about ADUs. And I forget if you wanted us to go community groups or town boards and committees.
I think I would prefer to ask the planning board what they think would be
Okay.
most effective.
And is that a good question to ask? About whether they're good with all groups, or should we be reaching out to community groups, or concentrating on town boards and committees? It might be nice if there was like a flyer, worked up so that people can post them. I know it sounds so old-fashioned, but I gotta tell you, there was a little resale lottery for a little house in Yarmouth, and I have been pushing. The resales are done by Hack. I've always been like, will you give me a flyer? Don't make me make my own. And that little lottery had 19 households.
Wow.
Because I Xerox it, I throw it in the library, I throw it upstairs, I post it on the bulletin board here. It really works.
That was a nice little house in Yarmouth.
It was nice, yeah.
The other thing I was thinking is, I don't remember her name, but there was a very eloquent lady who got up and talked about her positive experiences.
We did
With having a-
identify her, because
Oh, okay.
we went back and looked at the tape, and
Yeah,
it was
that-
just
Carol
too...
Phelps.
Carol Phelps, yeah.
That was nice to hear, and maybe more people could hear it.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of them.
Yeah, I know.
Well, maybe you should do a little video, that we could post. We have a communications person here in town now.
Yep.
So, if they say yes, maybe we should meet with the communications person.
Yeah.
Good idea. Okay?
And now so our next meeting is October 23rd at 3 PM,
Good.
and then you added public comment onto your agenda.
That's right. Well, you've been patiently waiting for your turn,
Thank you.
and it is your turn now, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Norm Holcomb. I live here in Yarmouthport. I'd like to ask you to consider an opportunity. Town is going to be going through a major sewage treatment redevelopment, if you will, in town. It's going to cost many homeowners $10,000 to $20,000 to hook up to the system. What if, and a lot of the areas that are going to be serviced are two-bedroom homes on the lower end of the home cost in Yarmouth. What if, instead of having to pay a sewer fee, the owner agreed to an addendum to their title to make it an affordable home? So it would go on inventory, and it's restricted for affordable use, and the Affordable Housing Trust would pay that homeowner X dollars that they would then turn around and pay back to the town for the hookup fee.
So you're talking about single-family rental properties, something like that?
Single-family homes, and that, now, first of all, if you look at your statistics, about 50% of the homes in Yarmouth are occupied by people that are at 80% or below of the state average median income for household. So there's an enormous amount of property in the town that is already occupied by people that are below the 80%.
Mm-hmm.
So somehow, if we got those, they're not currently restricted to affordable use. If somehow we were able to get those on the inventory, that would recognize that they are in fact affordable homes. And that money would be well spent to get that kind of restriction on their deeds without having to go out and redevelop property, or it would be giving money from one town department to another. And I think it would be a good way of incentivizing people to have their property, their deed restricted, as if they didn't have a sewer hookup fee to deal with in the future. Now, how much would that cost? Well, what if it was $10,000 and it was 100 homes? That's $1 million. The Affordable Housing Trust has a lot of money over a 5-year period of hookups. If you could do 100 houses a year, that'd be 500 houses. Now that's a very lofty goal, but even if it was half of that, it would be a major accomplishment in terms of getting those homes restricted to affordable use. So I think that's something that a different way of approaching this whole situation, and it would give those families whose household income is low a great incentive and a great boost to not have that kind of thing hanging over their heads. Second thing I wanted to comment about was the mission of this committee. It is to increase affordable housing to try to get to a 10% level. But it's, and I'm going to read from what it says on your website, while taking into account quality of life in the community. And ladies and gentlemen, flooding is quality of life issue, and quality drinking water. That's what the selectmen are worried about. And I think you've got to take that into account in your actions and seriously consider the conflict between those objectives.
Thank you very much. So that does conclude our business today. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Marcia, we got to do a roll call. Yeah. Myra?
Aye.
John? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.